I think it's time I told the story of a friend of mine and what happened to him. Well, get ready. This is going to be a shock, okay? Before we continue, I want to welcome all the new subscribers. We're glad to have you with us and exchanging your stories and sharing information with us. We're the go-to channel for long-distance relationship information in the Philippines and the surrounding areas. We want you to feel free to comment and take a part in everything that we do. So, once again, we're glad to have you. Now, I've been talking to my friend, and he sprang something on me I wasn't quite expecting. His wife had recently left him for a man that made a lot of money. Oh, boy. Now, don't get me wrong, my friend made a comfortable living, but I guess it just wasn't enough. I want you to follow me because I'm going to make a shift here, and I'm going to tell the story from his view. I'm going to take his place, okay? Now, I've been doing well for myself, but I was getting a little older, and I just didn't have the drive to work night and day anymore. Things were okay. The house was almost paid for, and now the kids were out of college. My thoughts would kind of slip from work over to playing golf pretty often. I knew it was time for me to slow down and start enjoying life a little bit more. My wife didn't see it that way. Sure, the house was almost paid for, but what about looking at another place in a nice resort area? A second home for the time we spent there. Well, to me it didn't sound like fun, it just sounded like more work. You see, she didn't mind because she didn't work, so it wasn't going to be a problem to her. Now, I didn't want to go for the more hours new home thing, so she quietly just quit talking about it. But it wasn't long before I started to understand why she was being quiet. It started with a strange hang-up phone call, and then phone calls late at night. Well, I never put two and two together, because we had been together for a long time, and I was getting ready to have a jolt that I wasn't prepared for. Seemed like the speed of light, but only moments had passed and I found myself in divorce court. Now, I'm going to skip forward, because divorce court is not something to talk about, it's only hardships. We're going to just leave that behind. As months passed, I ran across an old school buddy of mine. He seemed really happy, and I asked him, "Hey, what's the deal? What's your secret?" With a huge smile on his face, he said, "I found a girl in the Philippines, and I've never been happier." He explained to me that they were married and that he had really been blessed. Well, as I left, I just never could get that thought out of my mind. So I went to YouTube and I searched Philippines. Now, I didn't expect to see what I found. You see, I didn't know much about the Philippines. I'd heard the name and everything, but I really didn't know where it was on the map or all. And so I really just didn't know a lot about it. And wow, it was a beautiful place, and the women just blew me away. I thought, could I do the same thing? Wow. The next day I called him from work, and he told me about a family that he knew there that had several girls, and he suggested I should get to know them. And I took their address, and honestly, I couldn't wait to get home. Once I got in, I looked up one of the girls on YouTube and sent her a message explaining that I was George's friend, and he had told me about them and suggested that I contact them. Well, I went to bed, but honestly, I didn't sleep well. Much to my surprise, the next morning I saw a reply. That moment was the start of a new day for me. We began to talk, and I began to learn. Everything just started to change. Months went by, and we were talking every day. Finally, one day I knew I had to go meet her. So I told her, "Hey, I want to come to the Philippines and meet you." She acted excited, and we started making plans. Before I knew it, I was on the first of 3 jets headed her way. On the first stop, I boarded a smaller jet and to get ready to go to the next stop. The seats were really small, and I was thinking, I hope that a little bitty tiny woman comes and sits down beside me where I'll have some room. While I was thinking about that, I still had that thought in my mind. These two really big guys walked onto the plane. It looked like they were NFL football players, okay? My immediate thought was, I hope they don't sit beside me. Oh, man, you guessed it. We were like sardines. We couldn't even move, just scrunched together. But I got my revenge. When they went to sleep, I just reached over there and got their peanuts out of their pockets. Finally, we arrived in Manila, and I got my first shock. I'd never seen so many people in an airport in my whole life. I was looking for my partner, but that was like impossible. Then, like magic, I heard a faint voice. I looked, and it was her sister, her brother, and her mother and father, and they were holding balloons and a card with my name on it. Oh, I wasn't ready for that. When I approached, she was still a little shy, but we all greeted each other and headed to the Uber. My second lesson, only minutes later, was I was paying for Jollibee for everyone. It was late when we started our trip over to the province, but she already had reserved a hotel room for me, so I wasn't worried about that. It was just a matter of getting there. Finally, we got there, and I was asleep at last. The next morning, I felt the jet lag, but I got up to get a bath and get ready. Okay, this brings us to the next lesson. No hot water for my shower. Oh my gosh. I found out it was pretty common. Soon she and her sister arrived, and we were all going to get together and head over to her parents' house. It was my first time to ride in a jeepney and my first time to ride in a trike. Wow, was that different. The sister, though, was a huge help. She made sure I was at least a little comfortable, and she was eager to talk to me. Now, when I say a little comfortable, if you ever have a chance to ride in a jeepney or in a trike, you're probably going to be a lot bigger than the people there. So they're not made for Westerners. They're made for Asian people, and it's small. Now, the sister was full of questions, and my partner just seemed a little distracted, but all was going well, so the day went pretty great, but it was full of surprises. New food I had never even seen before, and a house that was kind of strange built. But we all sat out under the banana trees, and we had a good time. We got to know each other. All was going well, and then my partner said she had to leave for a few hours, and she quickly got up and left. She just told me to stay there. Now, her sister, with her infectious smile, made sure I was having a good time. She took me, and she showed me around the little farm. Her personality was always bubbling over, and she always made me feel so much at home, like I belonged. She told me, tomorrow we're all going to the waterfalls for a swim. Hey, that sounded pretty good to me, and I was excited, and I was looking forward to it. We went back to the house, and by then my partner returned with not much of an explanation of why she had left or where she had been, so I didn't question her. The girls and I headed back to the hotel where I prepared supper for everybody, and we ate, and we talked about plans for the next day. Pretty quick they left, and they left me alone, and I needed the rest, believe me. The following morning, I was off to the waterfalls with 4 or 5 of the girls' friends and them. We walked in on the small path leading down to the waterfall, and it was just, the whole thing was just surrounded by lush greenery. Beautiful, hardly described it, and it was so peaceful. But the peace soon gave way to the sound of water crashing down. When we arrived at the waterfall, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. It was probably one of the most breathtaking places I had ever been. We were all in the water splashing and playing around the waterfalls before you can even imagine. It was great, and the sister made sure I was enjoying every second of it. During the time we were there, my partner spent more time with her friends than she did with me, but the sister stayed right by my side, laughing, and her charming wit just made the day a really fun day. The day was so much fun, but lying back in my hotel bed, I couldn't help but think back about the day's events. And to me, it was pretty noticeable that my partner didn't seem to stay around me much, while her sister was always making sure that things were going well. A little puzzling. She was really so much fun to be with, and over the course of the next week, things just seemed to always follow the same pattern with my partner and with her sister. With only a couple of days left, I wanted to take in one of the night markets that I'd heard a lot about, and so I told my partner, and she said she couldn't go, but her sister would take me. So off we went. This night was totally different. I'd never been to a night market, and it was packed with people. The sister took my hand and made sure I didn't get lost in the crowd, and believe me, that would have been pretty easy to do, as many people as there was there. Soon, I noticed I was holding her hand, and what was happening? We went to a food booth, we ordered some food, and we sat there and we were talking, and she told me her feelings for me had blossomed during my time there, and she knew she was in love with me. I would have been shocked, except I felt the same way. That night on the way home, we kissed, and we were still holding hands, despite there was no crowd to get lost in. Oh man, I knew I had to talk to my partner, so I figured I better get it over with. So the next day I called her aside and told her I was in love with her sister. But she smiled, and she told me that was a good thing, because she had felt I wasn't the right man for her. Oh my goodness. I spent the last days there with the sister, and no doubt it was the best days of my life. But soon I was on my way home with a mind full of thoughts. Now, it's been 5 years since the time I was there at their house, and a lot's happened. The sister and I are married with 2 wonderful children, and we both have never been happier. We now live back in her province, not far from her parents. And her parents understood our love, and they were happy for us. And as far as my old partner, she's also happy with her new husband, her old boyfriend. It seems all along she was in love with him, but she just didn't know how to tell me. Sometimes surprises happen, and when we least expect them. What had started out as just meeting the family and everything had turned into a totally new family. Now, for me and my friend, it's been a while since I've seen him, but I did see him after he moved to the Philippines, and I know that he's truly happy. Now, stick with me, because we're going to just slide on over and explore the many adventures of the Philippines.